Hey, what's up, guys? It is Prescott season back again with my first official video this time. In this video, what I'm going to be doing is ranking all 18 of the MCU movies from Iron Man 1 all the way to Black Panther to get ready for Infinity War, which is coming out in just a few weeks now. It's crazy that it's right around the corner. It's Infinity War month. It's kind of scary, but I'm gonna be ranking all the MCU movies, and so you guys can kind of see what my opinions are and how I would rank these movies. Uh, just to say this now, I don't. There's not an MCU movie I don't like. I love all these movies. I could rewatch all these movies easily. So I wouldn't really say it's worst to best. If anything, it's least good to best. But I do like all these movies, but a lot of them are not near as good as some of the other ones. And that's pretty much what I'm going to be talking about today. So, coming in at number 18 is The Incredible Hulk. Um, this movie gets a lot of crap for it, and it's not all of it is deserved. It has its good moments. The villain, although he is Abomination, is the basic, counterpart of the hero. It's fun to see. The Hulk versus Abomination fight scene is super fun with Hulk putting on the cars as gloves, pretty much. That's a super fun fight, but on the surface it is a boring, bland villain. But their fighting makes up for that. I like how they decided not to do the whole origin story with how Bruce Banner becomes the Hulk. How they kind of set that up in the opening credit scene, and then then you get more time to kind of develop Bruce as a character and hear more of Bruce's story. And I do like how they did that. The CGI also is not bad at all. For a movie that came out in 2008, it's very good compared to, like some of the stuff we have now. Like it's good. So that's another good thing about this movie. But it's just bland. There's nothing too special about it at all. And it's nothing special. That's pretty much all it is. Apart from the final fight with Abomination, I don't have a lot of fun with this movie, but it doesn't deserve all of its hate. I will say that. And now moving on to number 17 is Thor: The Dark World, which start off, the villain is just awful. Easily the worst villain in the MCU in my opinion. Malekith, whatever. Just like he's boring. I couldn't tell you much about him honestly because I don't know much about him. We don't get much development or anything about the character that much. The whole thing with the Aether is just kind of confusing. It's weird. Not a huge fan of it. What saves this movie for me is Loki and Thor. Same with Tom Hiddleston as Loki is great. Same with Chris Hemsworth. The whole development with Loki's character, how you can kind of see he's starting to go down a better path. He's not just this one-sided villain you have. He's a very complex character, and I love that about Loki. And I love my favorite scene from it is where Loki's in his cell and he's got that huge he's yelling at Thor and Thor's like cut the act out, and then the vision goes away and you can see Loki's he's hurting. He's not this tough guy this whole time. So I do like that. Another problem for me is Jane Foster in this movie. I feel like they're trying way too hard not to make her just a love interest for Thor. And in doing that, they just kind of overdo it, and it's weird, and I'm not a fan of it. And those are my complaints with Thor: The Dark World. And now, moving on to 16, we have Iron Man 3. And I know this movie, some people like it, some people hate it, and it usually comes down to the Mandarin twist, because some people like that twist. For me, I think I was okay with the twist idea, but I think they overdid it with the whole way they what's the word I'm looking for? The way they went through with it. I just kind of think they overdid it with the actor, how goofy he was. It's just kind of, you're building up to this intense moment, and then it just flips 180 on you, and you're like, now I'm laughing, but like it was weird. I didn't like it that much. I think I liked the idea more than the way they actually did it and went through with it. The villain, Killian, he's got that kind of basic storyline where, Tony Stark's mean to him years ago and he decides to, get big and kind of get his revenge, just kind of like someone like Electro in Amazing Spider-Man 2. It's just nothing too special. Killian, He's not a terrible villain. There's nothing special about him either. Of course, Robert Downey Jr. saves this movie because he was born to play Tony Stark, and it's just that simple. He steals this movie easily, and I like the whole thing they did with the PTSD for Tony with coming after Avengers. How he's kind of battling that. I did like that a lot. I like that little storyline. But yeah, that's what I got for Iron Man 3. And now moving to 15, we have Iron Man 2. And my big complaint with this movie is Whiplash. The beginning of the movie, the opening credits, they set him up that the way they set him up, it seemed like he was gonna have this great character development. You see him kind of making the whips, and you see all these Tony Stark newspaper clippings up on his walls, and you're like, okay, maybe like we're gonna get some cool development with this guy, kind of see his whole background, his whole story, and that was kind of it. That's all we got, and that bothered me. Justin Hammer also pretty bland. Nothing too special about him. He's kind of over the top to the point where it's annoying, and the two of them together just didn't work. Uh, it's just overall for me, up until a few of the fight scenes, the movie's kind of just boring. I'm not a huge fan of it. And same with Iron Man 3. Robert Downey Jr. saves the movie and makes it watchable because that's what he does, because it's Robert Downey Jr. And that's Iron Man 2. And now moving on to 14, I have Thor, the first Thor. The One of the best things about it is the visuals. This movie is beautiful. It's amazing to look at. It's the way they do Asgard is outstanding. I love it. And another thing is Loki as the villain is awesome. I love, his kind of story because you can almost sympathize with him and you can't at the same time. So it's kind of like going back and forth between him. He's very complex, and I love Loki because of how complex he is. And so that's my favorite thing about Thor, the movie. I don't like Jane Foster in the movie, like I was saying when I talked about Thor: The Dark World. She's kind of just a love interest for Thor. I don't. There's not much special about her. And yeah, apart from Loki and Thor's performances, it's just bland to me. And then now going on to 13, we have Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2. Now, this movie I have so low because it was just disappointing to me. I love Guardians of the Galaxy 1. I loved it so much, and I was so excited for this movie, and it let me down, in my opinion. I What I liked about Guardians of the Galaxy 1 is that it's these group of characters that, wouldn't work together, and they end up having to work together at the end. And so I was like, Guardians of the Galaxy 2, we're going to get to see more of them working together, more of their, relationships with each other. And the first hour and a half, the Guardians are split in two. And it's just, I didn't like that at all, really. And I also, I see why they do it to push the story, but I didn't like that. For like the first hour of the movie, I hated Rocky Raccoon. I loved Rocky Raccoon in the first Guardians, but he was just so bratty in the beginning of the second one that I didn't like him. I feel like they went over the top trying to kind of make a conflict with him and Peter that it just made me not like Rocket. And obviously it was all redeemed at the end. The ending of the movie definitely saves it. It's outstanding. But the beginning for me is just too much that I'm not like I can't look past it, and it's just disappointing for me. Ego as the villain, I love. I think he was a great villain. He was one of the villain, like he's one of the few villains where I look at and I just hate. Like a lot of the villains I either can sympathize with, or they're just kind of bland villains. So my thing with villains, if I think they're good, is if I can sympathize with them, or if I straight up just hate them. Like as I hate how evil they are. And Ego is one of those villains for me. When he talks about how he put the tumor in Peter's mom's head, I just remember getting so upset, and I was ready for Peter to beat the crap out of him. And I think Ego is a good villain. I like the development with his villain, and I like how Peter kind of goes with that. Relationships with a few of the characters, Yondu and Rocket, was a great, their characters, they were great together. Same with Gamora and Nebula. You get some more characterization for Nebula, which is awesome. I love that. And Drax in this movie, to me, saves it as well. Drax is awesome. In Guardians, he's great. In Guardians 2, he's even better. He's fun to watch, and he's like funny, but it's not one of those characters where they're like trying to be funny. So it's great. He's kind of like Thor in his first movie, or in the first Avengers. It's kind of like that awkward funniness, and I love Drax in this movie. But that's all I got for Guardians. Now on to number 12 is Ant-Man. And this movie I don't have a lot of complaints about. I just rank it low because it's nothing too special about the movie, but there's nothing bad about it at the same time. This movie was very surprising to me because I love Paul Rudd, but I was like, there's no way he's a superhero. And I watched this movie, and he is Ant-Man. He's such a fun movie, such a fun character. The fight scenes are fun, the characters are fun. It's a fun story to follow. There's nothing too bad about it apart from the villain, who is just a counterpart of Ant-Man with Yellow Jacket. But it's a very fun movie on the surface. I can rewatch that easily, have a lot of fun with it. There's nothing. I don't really have many complaints apart from the villain, and it's just fun. It's reliable. It's a reliable movie, yeah, man. Now to 11 we have Doctor Strange, which is another movie that surprised me a lot because I didn't know it. I mean, I knew enough about Doctor Strange, but I wasn't kind of looking forward to this movie. I guess I look forward to all Marvel movies, but I wasn't like, oh yes, Doctor Strange, it's gonna be awesome. I was just kind of like, okay, Doctor Strange, like we'll see how it is. Um, Benedict Cumberbatch great as Doctor Strange. The casting for a lot of the Marvel heroes is fantastic. They usually get it spot on, and that's what they do here with Benedict Cumberbatch. He's great. The fight scenes are awesome. I love the way they fight with the magic, where they got those spear things that they kind of like create. I love that. They're bouncing off walls, things like that. The way the buildings fold, all that is awesome. The visuals in this movie are great. It looks super cool. It's trippy. It's awesome. The biggest complaint is the villain is awful. Caecilius just no development whatsoever. He's just kind of, you get the storyline that he went crazy because he learned too much, and then he was like, I want to use this for other ways, things like that. It's nothing too special about him. But it is a fun movie with fun fights, and I do enjoy this movie a lot. Now going to the top 10. At number 10 we have Avengers Age of Ultron, which gets a lot of crap, but I do like this movie a lot. My biggest complaint is that they underused Ultron, in my opinion. From the trailers, I was so excited for Ultron. Like the way they built him up was kind of like a horror movie villain almost. Like he was creepy with the whole, there are no strings on me like trailer. I love that. So I was super excited for Ultron, and in the movie he was just kind of goofy, and it was weird. And I was kind of hoping he was gonna be like a creepy, ominous villain, and they made him a little, jokey and sarcastic, which I understand because it's kind of not Robert Downey, it's Tony Stark's like almost mine, because it's since Tony Stark created it. But it's just the way they built it in the trailers to how it was in the movie kind of threw me off a little bit. I didn't really like that. The movie does a great job though of setting things up, whether it's with Civil War, they set up Ragnarok a little bit, things like that. It was good setup for the future of the MCU. I liked that a lot. I love the conflict between Steve and Tony that just continues to grow. The whole scene where they're, chopping wood, and Tony's like, I don't trust a guy without a dark side, and Steve says, you haven't seen it yet, pretty much, or maybe you haven't seen it, whatever it was. But I like that scene a lot. I love, the dynamic between Steve and Tony is one of my favorite things in the MCU, and they do a great job of continuing that in Avengers Age of Ultron. I also really like the Maximoff twins in this movie. Scarlet Witch especially, Quicksilver we don't get much of, but I do like his kind of relationship with Hawkeye throughout the movie that eventually leads to his death, which I was bummed about, but at the same time I'm kind of glad it happened because we haven't had a really, huge, like up until this point there haven't been a lot of huge deaths up in the MCU, so I'm kind of happy with it. At the same time, I feel like it's kind of at the same time a safe kill. If you had to kill someone, that's someone you can kill safely and not have a lot of backlash for it, and continue to tell the story just as good. But I do like the Maximoff twins in this movie, and I like them. I like Scarlet Witch now as well. Over to number 9, we have the first Iron Man, which is just, it sets up the MCU. It's just a great movie. Robert Downey Jr. is fantastic. This guy was born as Tony Stark, and he does it fantastically. This movie is just all around great because of Robert Downey Jr.'s performance. The villain is great. Ironmonger is just a great villain. He had great development. They developed him greatly. He wasn't just kind of, oh, I'm a villain now. I'm gonna stop you. So they develop Ironmonger very great in this movie, and it leads to a great kind of dynamic between the two characters that leads to the final act. And overall, this movie is just great in setting up the MCU and, getting us all started on this entire universe that we love. Now, over number 8, I have Captain America, the First Avenger, which, like I was saying in my last video, got me into superheroes, so I do have a soft spot for this movie. I love Cap's origin story, like the first, I don't know, like maybe hour of the movie where he's kind of trying to enlist in the army, but he's not able to because of his physical build. And I love, the heart in him. I love that so much. And just kind of seeing his, not development, but the way, how much heart the character has. I love that. So I also love Peggy and Steve's relationship in the story. I'm a huge fan of them. And it's just, every time I watch the movie, it's just heartbreaking to watch. Sorry if you guys hear those dogs. It's just, I don't know what's up with them. But I love Peggy and Steve's relationship. It's heartbreaking for me to watch every single time, having him call Peggy, telling her they're gonna need a rain check on the date right as he drives the plane into the ocean. I love their relationship. They built that up perfectly, and they develop Cap's character throughout the movie very well. I love everything with Cap and Peggy, just Cap in general. The big problem is Red Skull. He's kind of just a evil villain. Nothing too special about him. And it sucks because it's the Red Skull. You could definitely do a lot more with the Red Skull, but it's just on the surface. There's nothing too special about him, and I didn't like that. But for me, Cap was enough to save the movie. Cap's character development, all that stuff. So that's Captain America: The First Avenger. At 7, I have Spider-Man: Homecoming, which the big thing for me is Tom Holland. He's Spider-Man. He is Peter Parker. I like him more than Tobey or Andrew Garfield easily. I love Vulture as the villain. He is a great villain. Michael Keaton plays it fantastically. You get the twist with him being the father. It's great. I love the whole thing. Like their whole kind of the back and forth between those two characters is fantastic. Robert Downey Jr.'s role in it I like a lot because it's not like he's overpowering in it. He's not stealing the movie. He has a few cameos, and he's in there as a mentor towards Peter, and it's perfect for me. I think that's great. I also like how we finally get to see a true high school Peter Parker. It's perfect for the comics. It's what we've been waiting for, kind of what we thought, or at least what we almost got with Andrew Garfield, but now we have with Tom Holland. And it's just a fun movie. Spider-Man's a fun character. He always has been, and Tom Holland is super fun in the role. It's a fun movie. It's enjoyable. There's not a lot of complaints for me about it. It's just, I love Tom Holland as Spidey. Now, over number 6, we have Thor Ragnarok. This movie I like a lot. I like this movie a lot. Compared to the first and second Thor, this movie is fantastic. The big thing for me is Loki's development that kind of started in Thor: The Dark World that continues into this, and you kind of see him almost becoming a hero pretty much. And I like that because I'm a huge fan of Loki and how complex that character is, and they continue to build on that in this movie, which is awesome. Hulk in this movie is fantastic as well. He finally kind of gets almost a solo movie. You get a lot of development from Hulk that you wouldn't really imagine we'd get ever since, Mark Ruffalo had been casted. He kind of just been in Avengers 1 and 2, and you don't really get a lot of development apart from the relationship with Nat, but you get a lot more from Bruce and from Hulk in this movie, and they do it fantastically. It's great. The side characters with Valkyrie and Korg are great. They're super fun. Korg is so fun. I love Korg so much. He's such a fun character, and he's perfect in this movie role. My biggest complaint for this, though, is that I feel like at times it's a little too funny. Like Thor, I don't think should be as funny as he was in this movie. I don't think his whole comedy is kind of that cocky character. Well, I mean, I wouldn't say that. I don't think it's really that jokester character. His comedy is kind of like awkwardly placed comedy almost, like with the whole throwing the mug on the floor. Another one like that. That was funny. That's kind of like, I feel like Thor's comedy. And this one, I kind of feel like they give him the almost like Spider-Man comedy where he's like fighting and he's throwing these witty remarks out at the people he's fighting. And just, at times it felt a little weird, but it was not near enough to take away from the rest of this movie because this movie is just fantastic in my opinion. And now over to the top 5. At number 5, I have Guardians of the Galaxy 1. This movie is so fun to watch. It is super fun. I was so shocked when I watched this movie because I knew none of the characters going into it, honestly, and I loved all 5 of them. I loved all the Guardians so much, and they do this perfectly they tell the story so perfectly from all 5 of the characters, and they do it quick enough, but they get you attached. You know, they tell you Drax's family was killed by Thanos, and now he has a bloodlust towards Thanos, and that's what drives him. You see, Peter is just a thief, and he needs some money, and that drives his character. You see, Gamora worked is Thanos' daughter, and she's trying to get away from him because she can tell he's evil. You can see Rocket and Groot's motivation and Rocket's development, where he's not this tough guy on the outside. Like, there's not this tough guy. He's got, he's hurting because of what happened to him with his whole experiment and all that. And they do a great job of telling these characters stories and not, just making it a kind of like a sit down telling stories, pretty much, I guess. But they do a great job with that. The biggest problem is the villain. He's kind of bland, but the rest of the movie saves that. It does. The villain being bland doesn't take away from it at all, and overall, it's just a great movie. At number 4, I have Black Panther. The biggest thing for me is Killmonger is one of the best villains we've had in the MCU. He's up there with Loki because you can so easily sympathize with this guy that it's like, how much of a villain is he really? Like, his story is just so compelling, and you get so much of it that it's like it's hard to like root against this guy, honestly. But at the same time, it's easy, and you're going back and forth because at times you're like, man, this guy's right, like he's gone through a lot. Like, he let him do what he wants to do, but at the same time, it's like he's killing people, and he's tried to kill our Black Panther. Like, oh, I don't know how I feel about this guy. But Killmonger is great in this movie. A lot of I guess, yeah, the other characters, Nakia, Koi, Shuri, M'Baku, and Wakabi, they're all great characters. They're all played perfectly, I think. They're all very interesting. You get enough story where it's not like overwhelming, but you understand these characters, what their motives are, things like that. I love that. The big problem is the CGI in this movie. It's just kind of, it looks very cartoonish, almost video game-ish, but it's not near enough to take away from the entire story, because the entire story of this movie, it doesn't even feel like a superhero movie, and it's in a good way, though. It's just, it's the way they tell this story is very, very great. And the fact, it comes to the point where the CGI doesn't even take away from the story at all, and it just ends up being great. And overall, Black Panther is a fantastic movie. It's just the big problem for me is the CGI. Now moving over to number 3, I have the First Avengers. This movie is just a dream come true. Honestly, the writing is perfect. It's super fun. It's what we've always wanted. All these characters finally coming together and fighting, together and saving the world. It's just awesome. It's fun to see. Loki in this is a great villain, as usual. I like I've been saying this whole time, I love Loki. So he's great in this movie. The comedy is great. It's not too much, but it has its moments. And each character, it fits perfectly with them. Caps is kind of this old guy's humor. I got that reference, things like that. Thor's kind of this awkward, I'm not from this planet humor. Robert Downey Jr.'s snarky comments, things like that. It all fits perfectly. I love how they also show that this team, it's not this perfect group of guys. They don't come together and then all of a sudden they just start saving the world. They have their problems. They fight a few times. They argue a bunch. And I love that. I love seeing them kind of clash with each other. And I love how this builds, like, this starts the kind of back and forth between Steve and Tony that led up to Civil War. You get their first argument. It's kind of, okay, like, where is this going to go? I mean, when I first watched this, I never would have imagined that that's the route they were taking. But watching it now, it's just awesome to see that they probably had that planned all the way back from here. And the Avengers is perfect, in my opinion. Now over to 2 is Captain America Civil War. I love the whole Steve and Tony conflict that has been building up since Avengers and Age of Ultron. So to finally see that culminate to this is awesome. They do it perfectly, I feel like. They introduce Black Panther and Spidey perfectly. I don't feel like either of them are forced. And it's not like it overpowers the movie or anything. They're there and they're great, and you get this introduction, but you don't get too much of their characters. So when their solo movies came out, you get even more of the characters, and you love it. Black Panther, you get the full story, you love it. Same with Spidey, you get more of his character, and it's just you wanted more, but it was perfect for the movie. The fight scenes in this movie, the airport scene is one of the best in the MCU easily. It's everyone gets their moment to shine in that scene. They each kind of land a few blows, get their moments, and it shows off kind of all the superheroes in that scene. the scene with Bucky and Cap fighting Tony at the very end is so intense. You it's just it's like hurts to watch, honestly, because they're going at it and it's like these guys fought together like just a few movies ago. They were fighting next to each other, like, oh man. But it's so fun to see. Zemo I really like as the villain because he's not a typical Marvel movie villain at all. He's not gonna fight the Avengers. He's not gonna, hold his own. He's doing it behind the scenes, and I like that a lot because he's kind of this, he's pulling the strings, and it's, some of it's kind of like, is that really like possible that he can do it like that? But it's not bad enough that it takes away from the movie because the story is so compelling. Um, and just overall, I like Captain America Civil War a lot. And now, coming in at number one, you probably could have guessed, is Captain America the Winter Soldier. I love this movie so, so, so much. The way it's kind of set up as a political thriller instead of like a full superhero movie is kind of has the same feel as Black Panther almost. I think is fantastic. Um, Bucky as a villain is very cool because Cap doesn't want to fight this villain. Like Cap, he knows that Bucky is bad because of the brainwashing and whatever it is, but he doesn't want to fight him because that's his Bucky. But I love how the way they kind of set that up. The fight scenes in this movie are my favorite. The highway scene is amazing. It's just the way the choreography with Bucky and Steve going at it is just fantastic. I love it's so little, but the little knife flip that Bucky has, I love that so much. But overall, going with that, the introduction of Falcon, I do like the Falcon a lot, and his introduction is great. The whole like in the very beginning when Cap's running by him, he keeps saying "on your left." It's fun. It's a fun introduction, and it leads into the rest of the story where you get the full character of Sam and the Falcon, and that's really cool. I like what they've done with the Falcon's character now as well. You get Nat and Steve's friendship that starts to build up, that leads into more of Civil War, and it's I love it. I love Natasha and Steve's friendship. It's kind of like almost a brother sister kind of thing. I like it a lot. And you also get a start of Cap's development that leads more into Civil War, where he's completely not trusting the government anymore. Even though in Captain America, the First Avenger, he's all for it, all for fighting for his country, government, things like that. And then he's kind of like, okay, maybe all that I thought was true isn't true, which leads into Civil War, where he's like, at this point, no, government cannot regulate us. We need our freedom, things like that. And it starts that development, and it does it very well. And just overall, Captain America: The Winter Soldier is easily the most rewatchable movie for me. I can go sit down, watch that movie, and be entertained throughout the entire thing of it. I don't have any complaints, honestly. But that is my ranking. That's how I rank the MCU. So let me know down below what your guys' ranking is. Start a little discussion. Let's go back and forth, kind of debate a little bit about it, because I almost guarantee your list is not the same as mine, but I do want to hear what you guys have to say. So go ahead, leave it in the comments below. If you enjoyed this video, please go ahead and give it a like. If you enjoy, and subscribe if you're new. More videos like this will be coming out soon. And that is all. I will see you guys next time.